The show, on the show started, it had success. I'm going to these premieres. I'm going to the Academy Awards and the Emmys. I was nominated for Emmys and Golden Globes. But I never fully felt like I belonged. You know what I mean? Because I just feel like I'm just me. I don't, okay. I'm going to the Emmys. I'm nominated, but the other four are real actors. You know what I mean?
Right. Hey, it's Scott Savlov, and welcome to another episode of The Path Here. And with us is someone that I've been familiar with just as a fan for a really long time, both enthusiastically for me watching his television and film work, and then as a parent watching his television and film work because my kids loved him. So you have two generations of Savlov family that are familiar and loved your work. Frankie Muniz is joining us on The Path Here. And Frankie, great to see you.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on the show with you, for sure.
You were born in Woodridge, New Jersey, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Do you think of yourself, as someone from New Jersey, or do you kind of think of yourself as a North Carolina kid?
Oh, no, it's tough. I'm definitely a New Jersey kid. My whole family still lives there. I was actually just there last week visiting my grandparents who have lived in the same house for 70 years. You know what I mean? My mom lives a block away. My aunts, my cousins, everyone's in New Jersey. So I'm quickly reminded that I'm definitely a New Jersey boy and always going home. But at the same time, North Carolina played a massive part in my life because that's actually where I started acting. My first agent found me in North Carolina and started acting in Charlotte and Wilmington, and then moved back to New Jersey, New York to do Broadway and theater. And so I've kind of been all over the place. But, to be honest, I've lived now in Scottsdale, Arizona for almost 15 years. So I've lived here longer than I've ever lived anywhere. So it's definitely become my home for sure.
Tell me, being born in New Jersey and moving to North Carolina, what brought you guys down there?
So my dad actually worked for IBM at the time, and he got job transferred to Raleigh, to North Carolina, and we went, and that's kind of where I went to school. So I feel like I did most of my growing up in North Carolina. Kindergarten through 5th, 6th grade, before we moved back up to New Jersey. And when you're a kid, life feels like it goes really, really slow. You know what I mean? So I feel like I have a ton of memories of those, what in the end is only 6 or 7 years. You know what I mean? Where I think of 6 or 7 years from today and I'm like, that feels like yesterday. I feel like, flew by.
But when you're a kid, it's a long time.
Oh no, life is so slow. You just want to be grown up, But yeah, no, so lived in North Carolina for a bunch of years and, I loved it there, but, that's where I started acting and it kind of took over our lives. So my mom went up with me back to New Jersey because we were really close to New York City and continued acting there. And that's where I got Malcolm from, and that moved us to LA. So kind of just happened pretty quickly,
You are a very athletic person. Even in your acting is very much high energy. Let's put it that way. High energy. How did you transition from just a kid playing, in your yard and hanging out and doing things with other kids, playing sports? How did you find acting?
I did a little bit of everything. When I was younger, I was fortunate that my mom and dad wanted me to do whatever I wanted, as far as sports or, after school activities and stuff. So I'd go from a soccer game to baseball to basketball. I played football. I was a star running back to tap and jazz class. I was in pageants. I don't know. I don't even know how that happened. You know what I mean? But I literally did everything. And my sister actually was the one who was into acting or thought that she wanted to be an actress. So she went to a summer arts program in Raleigh, and they put on a big play at the end of the summer at Raleigh Memorial Auditorium, which is 2,500 people. It's a big theater. Right. And uh, I loved watching it. And then she was going to audition for something else. She was actually auditioning for A Christmas Carol. And we were jumping on the trampoline and she's like, you should audition. And I was like, okay. So she picked a song for me to sing and I went and I ended up getting the part of Tiny Tim. And literally, like, I think the second or third rehearsal, an agent named Jackie Presley came up to me and my mom and was like, I'd love to represent him. Like, he's got the look and the thing. And it just happened, So, like, I never, I don't think I ever said, like, I want to be an actor. You know what I mean?
Right.
I never said I didn't want to be an actor, but it was just the thing that took over my life. Like if it could have been soccer, it could have been basketball, it could have been something else, right? But it took
Right.
over, and I'm grateful it did. And yeah, that's how it started.
Did your sister stay with it?
No, so she actually didn't even. She didn't get picked for the play. I did. Being an actor, you have to handle rejection. You know what I mean? Like you can't
Yes.
let not getting a part or whatever it may be or people's opinions, you can't let it get to you. And it really ate her up. You know what I mean? But she was what? I don't know, 10 years old. So some people it will, or in your teenage years. So she didn't like that aspect of it. So she didn't want to do it anymore. So it kind of just became my thing.
So, what age were you when Jack Presley found you?
I was 8 years old.
So, how did he help you get from there to say going back up to the Northeast?
Well, so it's just starting, like sending me on auditions. They actually at that time they were doing a lot of filming in Wilmington, North Carolina. Like they built a big studio there and everything.
Right.
And my mom would drive me, every other day or whatever it was, the 2.5 hours each way to go for like a 2 minute audition. You know what I mean?
Wow.
But it got to where if they ever needed a young boy, between 6 and 12 years old, that they just called me. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I did, I don't know, 50 or 60 commercials, like big, some big commercial with big brands in North Carolina. I had done a bunch of TV movies. I was doing a lot of theater, but we kind of like, even my agent, was like, I think you've outgrown North Carolina. Like you need to make the next step of either going to New York or LA. And we decided, obviously, New York is an easy decision because our whole rest of our family lived, 5 miles away in New Jersey, and so we went
Right.
up there thinking like we'll just go for the summer, you know what I mean, before school starts back. We'll see how it goes, and immediately I started, booking stuff in New York, and it like I ended up missing the first couple of weeks of school. They kicked me out of the school, and we were like, well, I guess we'll stay and we'll keep doing
Of
this
course they
acting thing,
did.
and
Yeah.
yeah, of course. Yeah. Yeah. I missed like the first like 2 weeks. They're like, nah, you're out. But, thankfully my mom was okay with like going with the flow. You know what I mean? And that's really like, honestly, like we didn't push it. Like, or we didn't
Right.
like, I don't know, what's the word? Like, we didn't force it. It just happened and took over. And we were willing to, or my mom was willing to keep me kind of going rather than, I know a lot of child actors who would go for the summer or go for pilot season. And as soon as it was over, like, no, pack your bags. We're going back home. You're going to school, And, I was fortunate enough to constantly be working to where it didn't
Right.
even give us the opportunity to say, like, is this the right thing? Like it just kind of, like I said, it took over our lives completely. And next thing I know, I'm on Malcolm, and that obviously changed my life for forever.
How was that audition? How did that work for you to
So
get cast in a
what's
big,
really funny
obviously
is,
a show that resonated with a lot of people, different generations, big demographics?
yeah, so just to back up a little bit, I used to be able to go into an audition and I would come out of the room and I would give a thumbs up or a thumbs down if I got it or not. Like I just knew, you know what I mean? I could always just tell. And I was right probably 95% of the time. You know what I mean? Like, and I had booked a Pizza Hut commercial that I was supposed to film, and we are supposed to film in Brooklyn, right? And my audition for Malcolm, let's say, was at 10 a.m., but I was supposed to be on the set at 10 a.m. in Brooklyn.
Oh,
And
geez.
I was like, Mom, like I've always been a stressor, you know what I mean? Like a
Right.
planner, like everything, I was like, Mom, I was 12 years old. I was like, we cannot go to this audition. Like, we're not going, like, we can't get to, Fox, which is like, Midtown Manhattan. Like, there's no way. And she's like, let's just go early. Maybe they can squeeze you in.
Wow.
I remember being so mad because I was like, I can't be late to my big break, my Pizza Hut commercial. I can't
Right.
show up late, right? So
Right.
we end up going early, but I was, which we didn't know, I was the first scheduled person that was supposed to start the auditions at 10. Meaning, like, if they were already having people there, we could have squeezed in. So we get there, the casting director's not even there. I'm like, Mom, let's just leave. Like, this is stupid. Like, we gotta go, we gotta go. And the casting director ended up walking in, and she's like, oh, you're here early. And we were like, yeah, I gotta go film this piece of commercial. She said, well, come in real fast. I read the lines like I didn't care. Like I just needed to whip through it. You know what I mean? And I came out and I went, thumbs down. Let's go. We went to the pizza commercial. The next day they called and they were like, they really liked you. They want to fly you to LA to do like for the screen test.
Right.
I was like, really? Okay. So flew us to LA and met with all the Fox execs and the creator of the show and all that, and ended up auditioning and for all them. And before we left the room, they were like, "You're Malcolm." So like super fat, like it was crazy because like I didn't even want to
Right.
go on the audition. And obviously it changed my life forever. But super quick how it happened and kind of unreal. I heard later that the creator and all the Fox people said that they were planning on the fact that this was going to be like this huge nationwide search, that they were going to probably look through thousands and thousands of kids. And I was literally the first tape that they put in the VCR, and they saw me and they were like, he's Malcolm. They knew, they said immediately, which is kind of crazy.
It is crazy, but it's also kind of cool because it's, it was meant to be.
Yeah, it was. And I think back now and I go, if I had actually tried to do the audition, like if I tried like to act it out, I probably wouldn't have gotten it. You know what I mean? Because, you think back at Malcolm, like the character, he was just like this annoyed, frustrated kid. You know what I mean? And
Right.
I was annoyed and frustrated when I went in there and did it. So
you hit the mark. They get, you got to thank your mom for that too, right?
Well, they didn't, back then you rarely got the script, especially like if you weren't like a known actor. Like you got the 3 or 4 pages of sides. You had no idea what the show was about. You really didn't know what the character was. They would put like a brief description. So I didn't know what they would want or not. You know what I mean? I just did it, but worked out.
So walk me through the conversation and how this would work. They tell you on the spot, you're Malcolm.
Yep.
You walk out, then you give your mom the thumbs up because that kind of changed a little bit.
Yeah.
How was that conversation? What did that mean to you? And I'm throwing these things because I'm trying to think of myself as a parent or as a kid going, okay, does that mean now I have to leave New Jersey? I have to leave the New York area. My sister, what are we doing? So walk me through that conversation.
Well, you kind of don't have the opportunity to really think about those things, especially, you got to keep in mind that like when I got the part of Malcolm, it was just to do the pilot, right?
Right.
So pilot season, 300 shows are made each year, maybe 6 to 8 get picked up, in which 75% of those only make it 3 episodes before they get canceled. You know what I mean? So like it's very so like we were just excited to get through the pilot. So we had to fly back home, and then there was just like 1 week that we filmed the pilot. So you film the pilot and you hope that it's going to get picked up, but realistically, I was actually doing a play in Hartford, Connecticut. So after I'd done the pilot, we did this play, and it was with Andrew McCarthy, Gene Stapleton, and Dana Ivey. I don't, some old school,
really
actors.
good. I mean, those are all well-known actors.
But real, like the craft of acting, and I'm just this kid, right? And I remember, I don't think I've ever told this story before, but Dana Ivey was so mean to me. Like she just was. There was something, I don't know, like if she was trying to like, but everything she would say about me being in the entertainment business or like my future or to my mom was negative. Like, don't get your hopes up. Oh, you did a pilot. It won't get picked up. Nothing like just super, super negative. And she would like, I remember it bringing me down a little bit because I was like, well, there's a chance, you know what I mean? Like, at least let me feel like there's a chance, And we were doing the play, and the upfronts that go on in New York where they pick all the shows was going on, and we got the call while I was doing that play that it got picked up, and they're like, "You need to be in New York tomorrow." You know what I mean? And I remember going into the studio to this, and being like, "The show got picked up," and everyone was so happy. Like Jean Stapleton, I remember she was the sweetest. She was so excited for me, so happy for me. And Dana Ivey looked at me and she's like, "You'll get canceled after 3." Anyway,
she wouldn't give you that.
She hated the thought of me having any kind of success, I guess. But even at that point, the show gets picked up. You don't know what it's gonna be or how many episodes. We ended up filming 13 episodes, and you're hoping that people are going to watch it. You're praying that people are going to watch it. There's billboards starting to go up everywhere. And when Malcolm premiered, 21 million people tuned into the first episode, which is a huge, like an insane number.
Huge number.
And then they ended up re-airing it on like the Wednesday, and 28 million people tuned in for that. And we kind of knew at that point, like, oh, wow, this actually is going to be pretty good, So, but, if you, to go back to your question of like what was going through your mind, you don't even know what to think because you don't know what to expect, like what the future is going to be, right? Like you don't know how long it's going to last. I don't know, like, so we were just back to the same thing of like, just go with the flow, right? Like just keep going. And I just loved it. I remember being a kid and you're only allowed to work, I think at the time it was like 9.5 hours a day. And I remember being so mad when they would tell me that I had to be done. Because I was like, well, no, we're not done. Like, I want to finish it. I want it to be good. Like I liked being on the set, I liked everybody, so that was interesting.
You were homeschooled during that window, right?
Yeah. I mean, so I was going to regular school, my whole life until, kind of right before I got Malcolm. Like I said, the school kind of kicked me out, and we were like, well, I guess we'll homeschool because it's the only way we can kind of be on the road or be where we need to be. And I really enjoyed homeschool. I would say it is definitely hard while doing a show, like as an actor, because not only do you have to do your job as an actor, they make you do at least 3 hours of schooling a day, in that time block, but you also do it in like 20-minute increments. So they rush me, they run me from the set into the classroom, like, okay, go to school. What time is it? 8:41. Okay. And if they took me out before a 20-minute increment, it didn't count. And so I can't tell you how many times they took
20 minutes.
You had to go 20 minutes for it to count towards the 3 hours. And I remember being so frustrated because so many times they would pull me out like 16 minutes in or 17 minutes in. And I'm like, give me 4 minutes, but like you got a show to make, so you're back and forth. And it's definitely, it's tough because, obviously being an actor and filming a show like as a child is a lot of work. But, in that 20 minutes, would I rather like have 20 minutes to just like sit down and relax? Like, absolutely. But you had to do what you had to do. And I did it. But it ended up motivating me to get done with my school early. So I ended up graduating high school when I was like 15 and a half, because I whipped through everything just to get it done. So then I didn't have to do it on set anymore.
Yeah, you didn't have to do it. Right.
But I think the producers and stuff loved that, because at that point I no longer had to work under the child labor laws. So I could start working like 15 hours a day. So
and crank through it.
Yeah.
For you, I mean, Malcolm was a huge break. You also kind of started delving into, which people who are not really in the industry don't realize how hard it is to be star on a hit TV show, the responsibilities you have to Fox and to the show and to your co-stars, your cast and your director. But then you're doing guest appearances on other shows that were, again, hits.
Yeah.
And even voiceover work in areas where there were hits. So for you, it was just one hard break, but that break led to so many other opportunities.
Oh, yeah. From Malcolm, to be honest, if there was more time in the year, I would have done even more. You know what I mean? Because
Right.
we were getting, like, my mom and I would get offers all day, every day for this movie, that movie. They want you here, this show, they want you on this show, this premiere, to where, like, it was overwhelming because you then had to pick kind of what you were going to do. You know what I mean? What made the most sense. And for me, I never felt any pressure because I was just a kid. You know what I mean? Even though I
Right.
was busy, and I also really enjoyed it. In that same sense, like if I was in that situation now, it would definitely be a completely different scenario, right? Because as an adult, you understand what's going on and what's, how many people are relying on you, or so you put more pressure on yourself. But I never had that as a kid. Like I enjoyed doing it, so I wasn't forced to do it. But in that same sense, I don't know, like I wanted to keep working. I wanted to keep going. I Yeah, so looking back at it, it's pretty crazy to think, a 13-year-old, 14-year-old kid was doing all that stuff or had that much kind of pressure on them. But in the moment, I didn't feel that at all.
For you, your experience with Malcolm, were you allowed to or asked to collaborate at all?
No, so Malcolm was an interesting one because, granted, not to say it was all I knew because I had done some stuff before that, but they
Right.
were so strict with what they wanted the show to be. To
Right.
where, I've been on projects since, obviously, or like during when I was filming Malcolm, and the director would be like, "Oh, just kind of ad lib, have fun with it," and we weren't allowed to do that on Malcolm. Like the way it was written was
Right.
word for word what they wanted said. You know what I mean?
Right.
So it was an interesting thing because, like, you know, it sounds like maybe we didn't have the freedom, but like we played the characters, we said the stuff, but like we really listened to them, and maybe that's why the show was successful because they had a vision that they were trying to achieve,
And they
and
stayed to
and
it. Right.
and they stayed to it rather than letting the actors kind of play with it, which maybe you get some good stuff out of that, but at the same time, like maybe it becomes different than what they wanted. So no, really, there wasn't. I can say this now that there were a lot of giant arguments and fights over between like my team, my agents and stuff, and the producers and the creator of Malcolm in the Middle because they wanted. I don't know if they wanted me just for themselves or they thought I was going to get burnt out by doing other things. So they would try to stop anything else that I had planned. So
Wow.
even movies that I was like signed to do, they would call NBC or whatever Universal and say, "Oh, Frankie's can't do it. Frankie doesn't want to do it." And then they'd call and be like, "Oh, we heard Frankie doesn't want to do it." And we're like, "What are you talking about?" No, but they were very, very strict with wanting me to just kind of be Malcolm, and take the time off when I had time. So that was an interesting thing to look back at now because I remember that. I
That's
remember
kind of
like my
weird.
mom being like,
Yeah.
"Why would they do that?" Or one of the big things was like I think My Dog Skip, which was one of my first big uh,
Right.
movie theater films, came out maybe 2 or 3 months after Malcolm premiered. So, I had this success from the first couple episodes of Malcolm airing. People were starting to know who I was. And I was booked to be on, all the shows, David Letterman, Jay Leno, all those things to promote My Dog Skip. And the producer, the creator of Malcolm was like, "No, you're not doing any of them." And we were like, "How do you, it helps Malcolm too. Like, it's not,
100%.
I
Right.
don't know. It was an interesting thing. I don't know what it was, but that's another story I've never told anyone.
No, but it makes a lot of sense because I can sense the tension because look, you're cast for a film. Part of that drill is you've got to promote that film. It's
Yeah.
like when people in the industry, when you do an interview, old school actors would say to someone like me even on a podcast, "Yeah, I'll do it when I'm in rotation of promoting a film."
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Because it's in their mindset, you promote what you're doing when you're releasing that film. So for
Yeah. Yeah.
you as a kid, you're going, "Okay, I'm doing this movie.
Yeah.
Why am I not allowed to be promoting a movie?
Yeah.
I'm giving you everything I got on set with Malcolm and it's a hit."
Yeah.
So I can see the pull,
I really don't know what it was. I even think about it back now. Like, I don't know exactly the mindset of why they'd want to stop any of the additional stuff. Other than maybe, I don't know. I
Just a
really don't
control
know.
thing.
Yeah,
It
it's a
was just
control
a
thing.
control thing.
Um, yeah,
On the positive, like my dog Skip, you did, say Lizzie McGuire and started that kind of uh, on-screen comfortability is, when people assume people are friends off screen, you
yeah,
never know.
yeah.
But when you kind of affiliate with, say, someone like Hillary Duff, as you
Hmm.
did,
Hmm.
it was easy to see that there was an affable relationship on screen between the
Yeah,
two of you.
yeah.
Um, how was in your mind when you did those kind of shows, in particular, like a Lizzie McGuire, which was wildly successful in its
Yeah.
own merit?
Yep. Yep.
Um, Fond memories for you?
Yeah. What's funny, I don't know if people know this, but Hillary and I had become really, really good friends when I first moved to LA to do Malcolm. She wasn't
Okay.
even on Lizzie McGuire at the time yet. Lizzie was her first big thing that she did. We were just friends from like the apartment building that we lived in. Like all the kids would get together and, I we were 13, 14 years old, like may have had like a little crush thing, you know what I mean, at 13, 14
Right.
years old. But no, we were just really good friends. So when she asked me to be on Lizzie McGuire, I was like, yeah, absolutely, and had a blast. But my thing was with whatever I did, we were really bad, not bad because it was the way we wanted it. Was we never liked to say no. Like we always wanted to try to make as many people happy as possible,
Right.
which I think isn't. I look back now and I think that's a good thing. Because there's so many
Right.
actors that they find success and they become really difficult, like difficult to work with, have all these demands. I always want people to think back of working with me as like a positive, because in the entertainment business, and I knew this really early on, like it's a lot about the relationship you have and the experiences people have with you on set because I can't tell you how many times I worked with people and then they would call me to do another project because they're like, oh, it was so fun working with you on that one and we love you on this one. And in the beginning, especially,
Right.
like I said, when I was back in North Carolina, a lot of it was just that they knew that they could count on me and my mom and that I would do a good job.
Right.
And a lot of it's about that relationship to it. Like I didn't even have to go on auditions. They would just call. They're like, you come and do this Ford commercial, come and do this, come and do that. You know what I mean? And kind of worked out.
Totally. I'm assuming then if they asked you, what about Dana Ivey being a guest star on Malcolm? Yeah, only for one episode because she can't. Yeah.
Yeah. No,
No, I'm just teasing. Yeah.
yeah. I probably would have vetoed that one. No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
Yeah, exactly.
She's going to come after me now. I don't even, she's probably, I don't know, 80, 85 years old now. She's going to find me.
Just let it, let it go. Just let it go. For you at the same time, I'm just thinking, you were also doing some voiceover work.
Mm-hmm.
Was that fun for you? I mean,
Well, I love
that's a lot
voiceover.
of different projects.
Yeah.
But again, you're cast because people recognize your voice,
Mm-hmm.
positive energy in a voiceover room, which again, just giving people a perspective, whether it's post-produced and you're voicing to a character, you're reading a script, you're going through your lines sometimes with collaborating with a co-star, you're doing voiceover stuff, you have your headsets on, you're kind of talking to each other, but you have to hit your marks, and otherwise it can drag on forever, right? Was that a fun experience for you?
I loved voiceover. To me, it was, to be honest, the easiest thing I've ever done in my entire life. You know what I mean? Because I was so used to acting in front of the camera and having to look and stand and, when you could just show up in your pajamas, read the lines and you're done in 10 minutes. You know what I mean?
Right.
It was, but it was fun. Like I loved also, watching, like seeing my voice on a different character. But no, I did a lot. I was on The Simpsons. I was on the first 3 or 4 seasons of The Fairly Odd Parents. I did a cartoon that's actually my wife's one of her the only I don't want to say the only thing that I've done that she likes, but one of her favorite things of mine that I did that not many people saw is a cartoon called Moville Mysteries, and actually my character's name was Mosley Mo, and my son's middle name is Mosley. she
Really?
loved that show so much. Yeah, nobody knows that either, but now they do. Um, but no, I loved voiceover work. I did a show called Racing Stripes, a movie called Racing Stripes, where it was a live
Right.
action movie, but I voiced a zebra, and I was in it with Dustin Hoffman, Steve Harvey, David Spade, Whoopi Goldberg, and they had everyone come in to read at the same time. A lot of voiceover stuff you don't. You just kind of show up by yourself and you just
Right.
say your lines by yourself. Some productions like that was a bigger production. They had everyone come in at the same time and do the scenes together. So it was cool to like get to act with like these huge, huge actors, like, Academy Award winning actors and stuff, even if it is just voiceover, but it was really cool.
Was that a learning experience too? I mean, I'm just trying to think of myself in your shoes. You show up and there are all these people that you've seen or heard of.
You know,
Uh, how
it's
is
funny
that?
because going back to like being a kid,
Yeah.
even that was just like, oh, cool. Hey, you know what I mean? Like, it didn't really get to me. I do remember feeling kind of my whole career, as odd as it sounds, the show, on the show started, it had success. I'm going to these premieres. I'm going to the Academy Awards and the Emmys. I was nominated for Emmys and Golden Globes. Like, but I never fully felt like I belonged. You know what I mean? Like, cause I just
Right.
feel like I'm just me. Like, I don't, okay, like I'm going to
Right.
the Emmys, I'm nominated, but like the other four are real actors. You know what I mean?
Right. Right.
I don't know. I don't know how to put that, but going back to the voiceover thing, I never like I just kind of I did it. But what was interesting is that they would come up to me and be like, "Oh, I love your show. Like, oh, you're so funny. And I'm
Right.
like, you know me? You know what I mean? Like, I remember always kind of thinking that, you know what I mean? That I was just surprised that people knew who I was. You know what I mean? I thought like, it's gonna be awkward. It's all these celebrities, and I'm going in there, and it's like, wait, they were just excited to, as I was to work with them, to work with me. You know what I mean? That's a weird thought. You know what I mean?
No, it's cool, but it's also a reflection because if you were a difficult kid to work with doing voiceover, just like acting, and you're standing there and you're with Whoopi Goldberg and someone else who's got that kind of notoriety,
Yeah.
if you were challenged moving forward, they would be like, "Oh no, cannot." He
Yeah.
was, we're just doing voiceover. He was so challenging, but
Yeah.
being affable, it does help immeasurably because you're in that space where people go, hey, yeah, I had a lot of fun. What a nice guy, and to your
Yeah.
point earlier, it makes an immense difference when you are able to convey this an affection for what you're doing,
Mhm.
right? It's if people are having fun, uh, then you want to be around them. If
Yeah.
people are miserable, you don't want to be around them. I don't
Yeah.
care.
No, I mean, I
You could be
know now
a
there's
yeah,
people who I've worked with that I go 1,000,000% I would want them on my next project, right? And there's other people who I go, if I hear they're going to be a part of it, I'm like, I don't know, that's going to be a rough one, So, people do remember, experiences and stuff like that. So yeah, I think it's
you
important.
you work with one of the great actors. He's made so many movies, but a movie that I remember watching with my kids and love the movie with Big Fat Liar with Paul Giamatti.
Yep, yep,
Great, honestly, fun movie.
it is.
I don't know if your memories of that were, you had a great time with that movie.
Oh yeah, I mean, that was like one of those movies that as a kid, we had a lot of fun on screen, but we actually got
Right.
to do all that stuff. So it was pretty cool. Yeah, Paul
Did you do your own
Giamatti.
stunt? I was going to say, did you do your own stunt jumping off that
I
building?
did most of my own stuff.
Okay.
There was a few things they wouldn't let me do, but for the most part, like everything in my life, I've done. I always got mad when they would bring in like a stunt guy because I'm like, I can do it, And then
Right.
now that like as I've gotten older and my body hurts, I'm like, they can do it. I don't need to jump off that. You know what I mean? But
Exactly.
but
Yeah.
no, Paul Giamatti, obviously, hugely successful actor. I don't know, I know he had done a lot of stuff before Big Fat Liar, but obviously, I think post Big Fat Liar is where he had most of his like critically acclaimed success. But super fun guy. I remember he had to be painted blue, which took hours and hours to do, and
Yeah.
he was always dressed in like Prada, and even his shoes were these Prada, you know, $2,000 shoes that his character was wearing, and the whole like last 30 minutes of the movie were running.
Right.
He's chasing us, like he's chasing me, and all one of my memories is the fact that like he just couldn't run anymore because his feet hurt so bad from those stupid Prada shoes. You know what I mean? But yeah, that's my Paul Giamatti
That,
story.
that's, yeah, I came out of I was in New York, came out of a lunch meeting, and then coming out of the same restaurant, this is like Midtown Manhattan, it's Paul Giamatti.
Yeah,
And, you look over at somebody and you know who they are. And
yeah,
whatever reason, I introduced myself.
uh huh.
And we walked like, and I'm not exaggerating, 15 blocks. He
Oh
wasn't
wow.
wearing Prada, so his feet
Yeah.
were okay.
So he was okay. So he kept
Yeah,
going. Yeah,
but he was okay. But what a wonderful guy. We talked about baseball,
yeah,
right?
nice.
Because of his
Yeah,
dad,
uh
being commissioner of Major League Baseball,
yeah,
but also Yale. I was asking him, about Yale, just because I knew that about him.
yeah,
And such a very unassuming, very
yeah,
easy to talk to guy. I'm walking down, I am walking down, and it was like a quick 10 blocks because
yeah,
I'm like, this guy's kind of a cool guy. So that's
yeah.
where when
That's
looking
cool.
at him now and all of his success and the
Yeah,
different types of roles, it's a fascinating work experience for you to be with someone like that. You go from that, where you are really, again, lead, but now you're in film as
hmm
lead.
hmm
You're doing Cody Banks,
hmm
right? Another great character, right? You had your sequel,
yep.
but your character for that, when they approached you with this, did you have to audition for that, or did they come to you saying, we've got a role for you?
No, they offered me the role of Cody Banks, and a funny story. Man, I'm telling all these stories. I don't think I've ever said to anyone. I was actually
There you go.
signed to do Holes. I don't know if you remember the movie Holes
Yeah.
that Shia LaBeouf ended up doing. I was signed to do that, and we were supposed to start filming like in like 2 weeks. And I was meeting with the director and like everything. We were talking about the role and talking about everything, and um, like MGM came to us and were like, "We're gonna film Cody Banks, and we're gonna start it in 2 weeks." And we are like, whoa, we didn't even know it was a possibility, but they put it together, and I had to choose between Holes and Agent Cody Banks. And as a kid, keep in mind, I wasn't thinking of like what may be the better role for the longevity of my career, right?
Right.
I was going, I want to be Cody Banks. I want to be the spy. I want to be Junior James Bond. That's like a dream, like a
Everybody.
dream gig,
Right.
right? I was 15 years old. Like, yeah, I want to be Cody Banks. So, a lot of the decisions that we made, my mom and my agents and everybody, they really kind of let me pick what I wanted to do, which I look back now and I wonder if I chose the other route, what would have happened? I mean, obviously, Cody Banks was hugely successful. We did 2 movies. I had an absolute blast doing them. Probably my favorite projects I worked on. And, but you go, if I did Holes, what maybe would have happened? You know what I mean? Career wise, there's no way to know. You know what I mean?
No way to know. And
I ended up leaving the business shortly after anyway to pursue racing, but no, it is a weird thought for me. Thinking back of projects that I know that we turned down because we didn't either have time or I was doing something else that became huge, successful, and blew up other people's careers. You know what I mean? As well. So it's an interesting thought for sure.
for you, the success that you had, and you just broached the subject where I was going to go next, was motorsports. For
Mhm.
you, was there always this, like, even when you were, say, in Malcolm and doing, prior to just transitioning into the film side, were you really focused on or wanting to do motorsports? Was that always a love of yours?
I was always a huge fan of racing, right? I never
Right.
thought, you know, how do you become a race car driver? Like, I don't even, like most people, you would never be able to answer that. You know what I mean? Like, how it's like saying you want to be an astronaut. It's so rare that people get to do that. But no, I was just a huge fan of racing. Like I remember being 5, 6 years old and watching the Formula One races on and the kart races on Sunday and NASCAR. And we grew up in North Carolina, so I went to Charlotte Motor Speedway a lot. The first year of Malcolm, was on Fox, and Fox airs NASCAR. They asked me to drive the pace car at the Daytona 500. So in 2001, I did that. So I was always kind of around racing and like loved it, but I never thought that it would be something that I actually did. You know what I mean? Um, but I got to do actually Bryan Cranston from Malcolm did the pro celebrity race that Toyota put on every year at the Long Beach Grand Prix. And
Right.
I remember him coming up to me. I was like 15 or 16, and he's like, "Oh, it was the most incredible experience I've ever had. You have to do it, but you have to be 18." So the year I turned 18, I was like, "I want to do it," and they let me do it, and I ended up winning the race, and I was hooked. You know what I mean at that moment.
Right. You have the
But even
bug.
then, how do you go from doing a pro celebrity race to becoming a race car driver? And a team had approached me, and they were going to just give me a test, like put me in
Right.
their actual race car just for fun, 2 days. Burn some tires. Have fun.
Right.
And so I flew down to Houston, and they fit me in the car. And I remember like sitting in the car. It was like a open wheel race car. I remember going like just being scared, even sitting in the car, because it's just like.
Right.
And I went out, and I was immediately quick enough to where I was quicker than their current signed driver, and they signed me to a 2 year development deal. And next thing I knew, I was a professional race car driver, right? So, pretty crazy how it happened. That's not a typical story. You know what I mean?
No.
Most people who I was racing against started at 5, 6 years old in karts and kind of worked their way up and been racing their whole lives. And I started at 18, 19, and was racing on one of the top forms of motorsport in Champ Car Atlantics, and had an IndyCar ride for 2010, and was going to move up, and ended up getting pretty badly hurt. I broke my back, had pins put in my hand, broken ankle, ribs, and that put a pause on my motorsports career for sure.
The camaraderie amongst the drivers, was it challenging for you being this successful actor? Was there any resentment from the other drivers? Was there acceptance? What was that kind of like?
I know at first, because they would come up to me all the time, and you know, people aren't shy when it comes to. I don't know. In motorsports, there is a lot of camaraderie. There's a lot of friendship. So that's one thing I love about it, and that's actually why I
Right.
got back into it, which is what I'll talk to you about in a minute. But um, I do remember everyone being like, "Oh, there's some actor, like whatever," and as I started running and I started beating people, and I was, running towards the front, like probably one of the greatest accomplishments of mine was having some of my racing heroes who I was racing against come up to me and be like, "You're a race car driver. Like, I didn't think that you would be this competitive, but you've got it." You know what I mean? And that's like really an amazing feeling, because, I was working really hard for it. There were definitely more eyes on me. You know what I mean? Because every city we'd go to, the sports section would say Frankie Muniz is racing this weekend, and people would come out and watch. Where normally when people are starting or whatever, at that point,
Right.
my first season, I was, of 30 cars, I was averaging like 15th to 18th finish, which sounds bad, but I'm beating 15 guys who have been doing this their whole lives. But because
Right.
I wasn't winning races, people are like, "Oh, he's no good," right? Even though I'm competing.
Right.
So there was more pressure in that sense, but at the same time, like that's part of what I think I like about it is I can work really, really hard. I can train really, really hard. I can focus on it. I want not only to do it for myself, there's something that motivates you to prove to everyone else that you can. And I know a lot of times you say, like, "Oh, don't care what other people think, don't care what." No, I want this to show that, like, this isn't like I'm working harder because I want to show that this isn't a hobby. This isn't a fluke. This isn't like I want to be the best driver I can be. I want to win races. I want to win championships. You know what I mean? Like I want I want it more than anything, and I'm working really hard to achieve it. And we'll see what happens.
So for you, the transition time period, I mean, you put Hollywood kind of on pause. And
Yeah,
was your agent still receiving scripts at that time? Or did you just say,
oh,
this is
So Malcolm ended in 2006, and that was my first pro year in racing too. So Malcolm ended. I was at the height of my career. You know what I mean? I was working like crazy, tons of offers, tons of everything. And I remember I made a call to my manager and my agents, and I said, "Hey, I'm gonna go car racing this year. So I don't care what it is. I don't care what the offer is. I don't care how much money it is. Just say no." And I remember them being like, nah, like, give them a month, give them a month.
Right.
Um, and they, yeah, it was, I think, tougher for them, obviously, because I was doing what I wanted to do. But no, they would still call me and, hey, you got offered this movie and you got offered this movie and they want you to do this. And I was like, I'm in Mid Ohio. I'm at Mid Ohio this week, and then Watkins Glen, and then I'm over here. And, no, like the thing about acting, really any professional career, right? If you want to be successful, if you want to be the best or give your all, you've honestly got to dedicate yourself to that craft. Especially in racing or even as an actor, right? The people who I'm racing against, it is their lives. It's been their lives since they were little, and they don't put food on the table unless they win races, right? It's a different mindset when you're racing people who are doing it to survive compared to oh, I'm just going to do this for fun. No. So with me having to compete against those guys, I have to work just as hard, if not harder. And if I'm halfway, oh, I'm doing some acting and I'm not training and I'm not with the team and I'm not doing that, I'm not going to find success in that world. So a lot of it was that, but a lot of it was, to be honest, I think I was burned out. I was ready just for something new for a little bit, but even because in my mind, remember when I said I was a kid, I did everything. And acting took over. Acting became the thing that I became an actor because it took over. I think I wanted to prove to myself that I could be something else as well. You know what I mean? So I wanted to at least try it. I wanted to dedicate myself to that. I think that, are there regrets in me doing that? No. I do sometimes wonder what would have happened if I stayed in the entertainment business. In that same sense, I've said for the last couple of years that stepping away, going into that different, career path, racing, and even leaving Los Angeles, moving to Arizona, almost woke me up. I realized when I moved to Scottsdale, and this is an advertisement for Scottsdale, but I started to look up. I started to notice things and people and trees and the sky, and as creepy as that sounds, it made me appreciate life so much more. Where as an actor, I loved it and I loved everything I did, but I kind of just did it. I always just knew I had to be up going, and I kind of, in a sense, I don't want to say I floated, but I don't have tons of memories of those years of my success. And I think it's because I wasn't necessarily absorbing. I was just doing what I was told I needed to do and going where I needed to go and doing it. So I look back at it now and I go, I'm grateful of the decision I made. You know what I mean? And it allowed me to have this different outlook on life in general. But also it puts me in this position now at 36 years old where I can look back. I've been an actor, I've been a race car driver, I've been a musician, I've owned a bunch of businesses. I've done a lot of dream jobs, but I can look back and go, what do I want to focus my life on? What do I want to be, and for the rest of my life, or what do I want to be involved in? And whatever it is, I have a completely different work ethic where I think, I'll be better at whatever it is I'm going to do now because of my past, because I stepped away, because I know I appreciate the opportunities a lot more than maybe I did, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
It makes a ton of sense. It also represents to me that if somebody came to you and said, hey, Frankie, we have this role in a film for you, we think it's kind of right for you. You look at it and you go, that hits me correctly. You're
Yeah.
probably assessing it completely differently than you did when you were in the height of your television slash film slash voiceover window, where you, like you said, weren't appreciated. Now you look back and you could say to your wife, and you've got a little one,
Yep.
and you're saying, hey, this is cool. And at the same time, your main focus could be on motorsports.
Yeah.
And for you,
Sure.
motorsports, you've now made that commitment to yourself, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like you said, this is your path. You've now
Yeah.
driven yourself, no pun intended, but your path is at this window of your career, of your life, is motorsports. And what does that mean to you? So my next question is, what does that mean to you, and where are you going to take it?
So, the interesting thing is, when I got hurt in 2009 racing, I never thought I wouldn't be racing cars. You know what I mean? Like, I
Right.
felt like at that point that I was a race car driver more than I was anything else. You know what I mean? But
Yeah.
it took me a really long time to heal, way longer than we thought. So I missed the entire next season. And then, I don't know if it's just my personality, where like I like when things take over. You know what I mean?
Right.
I
Right.
like not necessarily having to make a choice, but like I just get busy doing something, and I'll do it. And I had joined a band, and next thing I knew, we were touring all over the world. You know what I mean? Opening
Right.
for huge bands like Ed Sheeran and stuff, and that was amazing. But going back to what I was saying, the racing in my mind was always where I was supposed to be. But now 12 years passed. You know what I mean?
Right.
And going back to what we were talking about before we started the thing, like how, or maybe we were talking about it on the podcast, sorry, how time when you're a kid goes really, really slow. 12
Right.
years, the last 12 years flew. You know what I mean? But I had my son 16 months ago. And I think most people, when they have a kid, would slow down, or would maybe they go, you know what, I don't want to do anything dangerous. I want to, slow down my life, be more, I don't know, safe. I had the opposite feeling. I looked at him and I said, I want him to see me reaching for my dream and working hard to accomplish that. You know what I mean?
Right.
And
Totally.
racing is the one thing that, like, I feel like it's where I'm supposed to be, but I also feel like I have unfinished business in the racing world, right? I feel like when I look back at my career as an actor, if more acting stuff came up in the future, awesome. I'd love to be a part of it. But if I never acted again, what I did as an actor, I feel like I accomplished a lot as an actor, right?
Right.
In the
Right.
music industry, there was more there, but like I feel like we got to a way higher level than we ever dreamed that we would achieve. But in the racing world, I feel like I'm not done. So I want him, going back to your point about camaraderie within the team and the drivers and the traveling, and I feel like it's such a cool thing for him to grow up and witness me trying to be my best, rather than me just kind of, I don't know, what else would I be doing? Hanging out at home. I don't know. So like there was a lot of that. I wanted him to be able to look up to me doing that. So I made the decision last October that I was going to go back racing. Now, all the racing I did in the past was like road and street course racing in a open wheel IndyCar type car. I never raced a stock car, never been on an oval, but there was something telling me that I wanted to go stock car racing. And so I called someone who I knew from the racing world, and they have a stock car team. The next thing I knew, I was in my first pro late model race at Kern Raceway in Bakersfield, California, against 28 of the top young drivers, and I was competing on ovals in the stock car world. So as far as my goal, I want to be racing something. You know what I mean? My goal,
Mhm.
to be honest, is that something in the NASCAR world, whether it be ARCA National, the Truck Series. We're talking to a lot of teams for next year. But I'm not opposed to racing sports cars and all that. I know I want to be a driver. I feel like I'm the most at home when I'm in the race car, meaning, of all the things, like I feel like it's where I belong. And I want to get as high up as I can. Obviously, at 36 years old, I'm pretty old to be getting into the sport of NASCAR or into stock cars. A lot of the people who I'm racing are 16, 17, 18 years old. But that motivates me even more. I know I don't have a ton of time, right?
Right.
So I know if I'm going to do this, I've got to give it my all right now. And that motivates me as well. So when the opportunity comes for me to get in another car and race next season, I'm going to be giving it my best, and I not looking back. That's for sure.
Well, that's awesome. You know, to me, it's inspiring. That's the nature of why I do this podcast, is for people to inspire other people, for you to inspire your son, for you to inspire your wife or your family, or your friends. A lot of people wish they could do that. You've had
Yeah.
lots of different iterations of you that have brought joy or inspiration to people, and that's commendable.
Well, I'm
And I
very
think that's kind of
fortunate.
cool. Yeah.
I'm very fortunate that I've gotten obviously all the opportunities I've had in my life. Right? If it weren't for me if I just went to that Pizza Hut commercial, we wouldn't be talking right now. You know what I mean?
Right. If
Um,
that's right. If you were walked into that audition all happy and
I might
giggling,
not have gotten it, right? So I'm fortunate to have a wife that's very supportive of me going racing and going after my dream. And you know, my son, I want to make him proud, and I don't know, even for myself. I've had a lot of success. I've had so many positives in my life, but I feel like I'm not done. You know what I mean? And I feel like I'm actually not even close. I feel like I'm just starting, and maybe that's I don't know if that's a positive or a negative, because I always feel like there's or maybe it's just that I have a lot of drive and ambition. But me mentally, you saying, "Oh, you have a lot of things that people can look back at and respect you or be proud of you for." I know that I've done those, but I also feel like I haven't done enough. You know what I mean?
right?
I don't know if I'm
You have
making sense.
unfinished business.
Yeah, I have unfinished business. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm
That
hoping
that
I'm
to
hoping
me,
to find success in the racing world.
yeah, I was going to say your next accomplishment has to be where you feel as comfortable in your goals that you've set and achieving those goals in motorsports as you have in anything else that you've done. So that's where I was at on being commendable, because you're setting your goals
Yeah.
and then you're going to go get it.
Yeah, I think I believe that the racing is the hardest thing I've ever done, in the sense that as an actor, a lot of becoming an actor, right?
Right.
You have to have some skill, but a lot of it is luck, to be honest. There's no
Right.
exact science of how you become an actor on a TV show or in the movies, right? Otherwise, people would be paying a lot of money for that, you know,
Right.
uh, that journal that explains what to do.
Right.
A lot
Right.
of it, especially as a kid actor, it has to do with like, oh, you look like you could be the son of those parents, so we'll pick you. You know what I mean? That
Right.
happened to me a lot in the beginning. So I feel like that's luck. But one thing that I've never necessarily liked about being an actor is I've worked on projects that I feel like I gave it my all. And I gave my best performance I've ever given. And I watch it back and I go, I'm never happy with my performances, but that one I'm happy with. And a critic says, it's not very good. Or someone's opinion
Right.
is, it wasn't great. And there's no like definitive way to know if you were good or not, right? You know what I
Right.
mean? Where in
Right.
racing, it's in black and white. If I'm the best, I finish first. If I
Right.
have work to
Totally.
do, I'm towards the back. You know what I mean? And I love that aspect that every week I can gauge where I'm at. You know what I mean? And there's
Totally.
no way to, nobody can say you didn't deserve a win. You know what I mean? If you win, because you beat everybody. You were the best that day. And I love that competitiveness and the competition of it for sure.
Well, we will look forward to seeing you, whether it's whichever series that you'll be featured on, because it seems like a lot of drivers today kind of mingle into the other platforms within motorsports, whether if you're NASCAR, people want to be in the Indy Series. The Indy Series wants to be in F1.
Yep.
And all of a sudden they show up at some motocross thing and you're like, what the heck? You know? But it's about the competition, I imagine.
Yeah.
It's just about winning and putting your team together and having success.
Yeah, when you've got that bug, I don't care if we're racing, if we're pushing shopping carts in the grocery store, I want to beat you. You know what I mean? So, that's one thing about racing is like I'll happily drive anything, and you always can learn something from different types of cars. They say if you want to be the best driver, drive everything you can, because they all drive a little different, have different characteristics that you can take and learn from. So my goal is the stock car world, is to be in NASCAR, but I'm not opposed, like I said, to driving anything I can. I actually just got contacted by an off-road like a rally car team. Literally today, they're like, we want you to drive for you. And I'm like, well, I've never done that, but hey, I know the best drivers in the world are those rally car drivers. So maybe there's a lot for me to learn there, and it will help me.
The only tip I would give you in that, don't wear Prada shoes.
No running. That's right.
The Prada shoes with that, which, just like running, it's just not going to work. Your feet are going to hurt.
Yeah, it's not for sure. Nice.
Frankie, I'm so appreciative finally to be able to visit with you and cover a lot. And
sorry I talk so much.
Well, I enjoy just hearing, like I said, you've been a favorite of my household for a very long time, and of mine. We've visited before at golf, and that's just another one of your hobbies. But you play yourself down, but you're pretty good, and can hit it a long way. So I will say to you that it's just enjoyable being around you. And when people would ask me, what's the experience like being around Frankie, is exactly what you would think it is. He's an enjoyable character. He's just a really nice person. I appreciate that. So thank you. That's my 2 cents in it. And I'm appreciative of you coming on the path here, and look forward to seeing you on television racing some kind of vehicle.
I will be. I'll see you there. Thanks for having me so much.
All right. You take care.
Have a good one.
Hey, thanks so much for listening to this week's show. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Feel free to write us on thepathhere.com to have one of your questions featured on a future episode. You can follow me on Instagram at Scott Savlov. If you want to send us a tweet or follow us on Instagram, it's at The Path Here Podcast. Hey, I'm Scott Savlov, and you've been listening to The Path Here.